starting to get into a buyer's market. Like it truly has. When you start to see prices come down even a little bit and they're getting negotiations and you're seeing price cuts and houses coming off the market because people are getting frustrated, like we're moving into a buyer's market. 98% of homes are not closing at asking price.
Home prices in America have skyrocketed. Everybody knows that. In most cases, at least 50% or more in the last 5 years, especially in COVID boomtowns, have seen price growth so extreme, it's completely reshaped the local housing market. One of those places is Northwest Montana, where home prices have gone up, are you ready for this? 90% in the last 6 years. And 1 year between 2020 and 2021, home prices in Northwest Montana in Flathead County went up 46%. That kind of growth created massive opportunities, but it also created massive affordability problems. Today, I'm joined by local housing expert Stephanie Thompson out of Kalispell, Montana, and she's with REMAX Glacier Country. She's going to break down what really drove this home price growth, how the market has shifted over the past couple years, and what it means for both buyers and sellers navigating this new housing market in the Big Sky country. You guys are going to love this interview. Let's get into it. Thanks, Stephanie, for joining us today. I've had my eye on Montana for a while. As a housing nerd, I'm very interested in understanding what's happening in that local market. How you doing, Stephanie?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to come on here.
You're welcome. Thank you for joining us. Thanks for taking the time. Before we get started with the madness of this data, tell us about yourself, kind of how you got started in real estate, what your passions are in the business.
Absolutely. I am fourth generation here in Flathead County. I'm fifth generation Montanan. And I, born and raised here, I was a small business owner before COVID hit and owned a salon, was in the salon industry for 15 years. And I thought I had a business that was foolproof, that was economy proof. So like during the recession, I totally thrived. But COVID, you can't touch each other. So we got shut down. So I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with my life? Somebody approached me a month before COVID hit and asked if they could buy my salon and offered me the money that I wanted. And so I was looking at other opportunities and I had to find something that I could still make my own schedule because I learned really fast I couldn't work for somebody else. And I wanted to be able to still keep the clientele that I had strong relationships with and be there for my family more. And I was like, okay, real estate or insurance, and no offense to anybody, but I got to sell something that I believe in. So we're going to go that route. Before COVID, our Flathead County, so it primarily is made up of Columbia Falls, Whitefish, Kalispell. We're sitting about 30 minutes from Glacier National Park. It was primarily sitting around 45,000 people. COVID times, everybody's watching the news. They announced Montana is the safest place to live. I truly think that was kind of a little bit of something that fueled the population increase, but all of a sudden, within 4 years, we're over 125,000. So our population almost tripled in about 3 to 4 years. Average price point in Kalispell, Montana is sitting around $540,000 for a home. I would say that Whitefish is probably close to $700,000 for average price point. Yeah. So if you have a Whitefish zip code, it doesn't matter what the house looks like, it automatically jumps a little bit.
What type of house does that get you? Like, are you like, hey, this is a house where you're like, wow, this is amazing. Or are you like, this is just an, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2,000 square foot home that a family moves into, and it's not a big deal.
I would say a 3-bedroom, 2-bath that's around 1,500 square feet is selling for about $475 right now on average. So $540, you're probably getting a little bit more manicured lawn. You're in a little bit nicer neighborhood. You have fencing and you'll have nicer finishes inside. But it's pretty crazy how little, this is horrible that I'm saying this, but it's crazy how little you actually get between that jump from 475 up to the 540s. You're gonna a little under 500,000. You're gonna be getting a smaller yard and maybe fence, maybe not. But it's just wild. Honestly, the market back in 2021, I remember when I was getting into real estate, I was like, this does not make sense. And everyone was saying it doesn't make sense. But I feel like this market doesn't make sense even more.
That's what I'm seeing. I'm looking at this data. I'll share it again real quick with the viewers. This is Flathead County, and Kalispell is where your office is, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so 6-year change, 90% in home values. One of the things that's interesting, we're seeing this in a lot of mountain states and just, I guess, markets that experienced a large boom during COVID, is that the peak of the housing market, you're actually down 5.4%, according to this Zillow data from Resi Club Analytics. You're down 5% since the peak in 2022. So like a lot of markets, it seems like the COVID towns peaked in 2022 and now they've kind of sideways a little bit, maybe down. Although 5% down from 2022, that's not going to amount to much when you were up 90% in 6 years. Are you seeing prices come down at all?
Prices are coming down, but it depends on where people live and what zip code it is. If I would say that Whitefish and Kalispell have come down about that 5%. I would say, but places like Columbia Falls have ticked up almost 5%. So just to give everybody a little bit of a background, Columbia Falls is actually, they call it the gateway to Glacier. To go to Glacier Park, you have to drive through Columbia Falls. So everybody is saying that's the next Whitefish, right? So Glacier Park's not going anywhere. People are discovering that. That's one of the only cities in our county that I've seen actually uptick that about 5%. So if people are asking me where to invest and where to buy to get the most for your money, I'm starting to recommend, even especially to locals, to look on the outskirts of town. So Hungry Horse, Columbia Falls, because that's going to be a better investment as far as investment properties. I think a huge draw to our town is that, especially because during COVID, everybody was looking to be outdoors because people can work from home. We have a large population that has moved here that does work from home. But one of the draws is Glacier National Park. Before COVID, we'd only have about 1 million people that would visit Glacier National Park. I think in 2022, they had to implement a ticketing system. So you have to have a ticket and they go on sale 48 hours before. And they had to implement that because we had over 4 million people that were visiting just Glacier National Park. It's only open from July to September. The show Yellowstone also hit, right? It was like a perfect storm that all came out. I still have people call at least once, it's slowed down a little bit, but at least once a month, I still get a phone call that me and my husband have been watching Yellowstone and we want to move to Montana.
You think about the housing market there, and the question that my viewers are going to have and swimming around in my head is who's the typical person that's moving and buying a home? Are they buying a second home? Are they moving there to Airbnb? We can get into that. I'd love to understand your Airbnb short-term rental market. That's a hot topic right now. But I'd like to understand, like, who is that buyer that's coming in to buy a home there?
Absolutely. So I'll answer that in 2 parts and then remind me of the VRBO thing after. But so 2 parts. It is like super hard being 4th generation here. It's super, super, super hard. It was hard for me to swallow. I just built in the last year. And honestly, if I didn't have a job change, I think my husband's a teacher. So I think we would have been priced out of this county, honestly, if I hadn't changed my job when I did. And it's really hard for locals. A lot of my friends rent. It's hard because the average median home price is in the 500,000s, but the average single family income is, I would say, between 35 and 40,000. For dual family, I think it's 60 to 70,000. So it's very hard for locals. The ones that I'm now seeing in the last year that locals are buying, and it's really exciting. I think that both people that are moving from out of state and people that are here locally already were scared to make a jump over the last couple of years. I'm helping a family right now that is unexpectedly pregnant with their 3rd kid. They don't have room. So they're like, okay, now's the time. Have to make a move, and they're just making it work. I'm seeing people living with their parents and buying together and buying a multifamily house or something that they can turn into where there's a mother-in-law suite or something off of a garage. I am seeing the most of the locals that are buying are people that bought before 2021 and 2022 and still have equity in their house. And they've been holding on to it because they were hoping that, and they refinanced back when interest rates were, 2.7 and 3%. But now they're like, okay, I should make the move because nothing's going to change. This is kind of where interest rates have leveled for the last year or so. So they're selling and upgrading. And with out-of-staters that are coming here, I would say that primarily people are still moving from, the majority of people are moving from Texas, we have probably the highest population that's moving here is from Texas, Florida, Tennessee, and Washington and Oregon area. That is where we see most of the drive that's coming here and most of the out-of-state plates that we're seeing. I would say that most people that are coming from Texas are buying second homes. People that are moving from the other states, this is their primary residence for the most part. But I would say that the most out of all the out-of-staters that are moving here is Texas.
So it sounds like it's mostly there's locals that are cashing in their equity. I call that a move up buyer, right? They're moving up into a nicer house. And obviously you also have people migrating in from Texas, California, Oregon, Washington. And like you said, people want to get away from the government. If you're in Oregon and Washington, you have the government on you all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So you're coming out to Montana to get some peace. When it comes to sellers, one of the things we're seeing is nationally is that sellers are just like stubborn. They're like, you know what? I have a low interest rate. I'm not going to sell. I'm just going to, if I do want to sell, I'm going to put the house on the market at a price that may not make sense. And if it doesn't get the price, well, I may cut the price a couple of times, but then I'll just take it off the market. So like delisted homes, the number of homes coming off the market right now is at like an all-time high. And it's prevalent in every area of the US where sellers are just, they're not in distress overall like they were during the GFC in 2008. So they don't need to sell. They may want to sell, but don't need to sell. Are you seeing that in Montana?
Yeah. Yep. I am seeing that. And I even have, truth be told, like my clients that come to me want to start there. I kind of, praise God, I've been able to build a name for myself. And I kind of start with, what are you hoping to get out of your home? You know, after I've done a CMA on their house, and I'm like, what are you hoping to get out of your house? And then depending where that number is, we have a different conversation, but I usually give people a price range of what I think their home is worth. And I tell them money and time correlate with each other. The higher you list, the longer it may take. The lower you list, it might sell faster, maybe. When people come to me with a crazy price, I kind of tell them respectfully, I'm in the market to sell homes, not to get listings. So here's the price range that I think for your home. If you want to list higher, I might not be the agent for you. I can recommend some agents that might work for you, but I really think that this is where it needs to be. And every once in a while, I'll have people push back a little bit, and maybe I'll give them a little time frame that, hey, we'll try your price for 2 weeks and let's go to mine after. But we're going to put that in writing. But I can usually tell when a house has been on the market for 32 days, about 32 or 35 days, because all of a sudden even though I've had that conversation that you and I just had, like average days on market are around 120 days. Now that we're in summer, they're around 90. And I can tell when it's 32 to 35 days because my client's blowing up my phone. What's wrong with my house? Why is it not selling? A lot of agents, if they're not talking to their clients, the people automatically think it's the realtor. So I'm also seeing a lot of realtor changes on houses really fast between that 30 and 60 day mark. They're delisting with that agent, moving to another one. And so it comes off one day and goes on the next. I'd say that's happening more than houses are coming off the market permanently here. They're switching agents. It's just a new market and we all have to get used to it, realtors included.
There's a misconception, and I think you cleared it up, Stephanie, that realtors oftentimes are the cause of prices being higher. But if you're representing a seller, it's in your best interest to do what's best for them. So you want to educate them, like you said. You're oftentimes the voice of reason in the conversation and trying to bring the price lower. It's the seller, because they own the house, they're proud of the house. Everybody thinks their house is better than their neighbors. That's just how people are, but that's how that's it's human nature. And so they oftentimes maybe start at an egregious number or a number that's not going to work. And the way you're educating them is awesome. And I want the viewers to understand that, and this probably, they still won't believe me, but
yeah, I know.
Sellers aren't saying, hey, I can get 500 for my house, I think. And you're coming in and saying, no, you can get 700. They're coming in and saying, I want to put it on the market for 575. And you're like, well, the comps say it should be more like between 5 and 550. And they're like, we'll try 575 and we can always come down. That's not how you get the best price for a house.
And what's really hard too is getting my sellers to understand that just because the house down the street is listed for the number that you want to list at for 600 doesn't mean it's going to sell for that. That's why we go off of closed comparables, and you can't go off of active. That house probably will never sell for that price, but you want to match that price. It doesn't make sense. I had one client just this week tell me something too that kind of resonates with me. He's one of my buyers right now. We were going back and forth on what this house is worth, and he was like, "Okay, Stephanie, like tell me how much you bought your house for." And I said, "Well, X amount of dollars." And he's like, "Okay, have you put work into it?" "Yeah." So he's like, "If you went to go list it today, what would you list it at?" And I told him a price, and he goes, "Would you pay that for that?" And I said, "I'd probably have a hard time." And he's like, "Yeah, a house will never sell for what you think it's worth, no matter what, in this market now." Because I feel like it's, and maybe people agree with me or not, but it really has shifted. We're starting to get into a buyer's market. Like it truly has. When you start to see prices come down even a little bit, and they're getting negotiations, and you're seeing price cuts and houses coming off the market because people are getting frustrated. Like we're moving into a buyer's market. 98% of homes are not closing at asking price. I've looked at the statistic. They're not. No matter what city it's in Flathead County, they are 98% are not closing for asking. And that could be because there's sellers concessions, buying down interest rates, or things are getting fixed before closing, or they're just, I mean, a lot of buyers are honestly coming in 10, depending on the house, 10 to 25,000 under asking at least.
Talk to me about the Airbnb market there. Is it thriving? Are there a lot of laws? Are people doing well with it, or, how's that going out there?
So the market has been honestly pretty saturated. If I have people that are looking for VRBOs, just kind of what we talked about a little bit ago about how I'm trying to tell people invest in Hungry Horse and Columbia Falls. Like a lot of houses there are not appeasing to look at with the eye right now, but I promise that that's where the money's going to be in the future. But it's been really saturated. If people want VRBO here, you're going to have to stand out. It's going to have to be, a themed, like something that is not being done already. Like for example, there's a place in Whitefish called Clydesdale Outpost, and they have cabins and they have Clydesdales that you could take rides on and trail rides and different things. So it's just got to like stand out. You got to have something that pencils. But Whitefish is something that is a year-round attraction now. And unfortunately, a lot of Whitefish is zoned where it's 30 days or more rentals. So you have to really have a realtor that knows what they're doing and what the zoning is, and make sure that they're getting you in the area that you're going to actually be able to use that VRBO the way that you want it to be. There is a lot of homes that do rent actually for a month at a time up in Whitefish. I have several clients that have bought up there and do just that, especially because a lot of people that are traveling are working from home. And so as long as you got strong internet and great amenities, like they're getting rented for 30 or more days. You might have some off season in the spring and the fall, but it picks back up for ski and summer. But we just had a huge tax law for the state of Montana that is going to definitely affect, especially our short-term rentals, that we don't really know all the logistics yet and all of the fine print and everything, but we are being told that it's for people that own more than one home in Montana. So your taxes will increase on your house that is not your primary residence anywhere between 30 and 60%. We're being told that it's mostly going to target short-term rentals. If you have a short-term rental, you could see that uptick in your taxes close to that 60% number. So that is also going to change our short-term rental. Praise God, I was able to keep our first home. We lived in a 1,000 square foot house for 5 years, and we finally just got to move out of it. But I am so thankful for that house. And now we get to bless somebody else by renting it long-term. And so I'm a little nervous about that tax bill. I think that they're doing this because our market is so saturated with short-term rentals. Our service industry and working class is really struggling to find affordable long-term rentals. I would say for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath are averaging around $2,700 a month. And that is really hard for people to afford locally, that especially that lived here before COVID and are in the service industry and everything. So I think that there's a shortage in homes nationwide for purchasing. And so we have a lot of building that's happening here. And a lot of the building that's going up is apartments and apartment buildings. And so they're trying to drive more people to use their short-term rentals, I feel like, for long-term to help provide places for the working class to live that can't afford to buy a home. And so I see kind of how that, if I'm understanding the new tax laws correctly, like I said, there's not a lot of fine print or things that have been released yet and helping us understand, but I think that those second homes and more that people own will be taxed differently if they're long-term, which is good.
I actually have not talked to anybody who, until now, where there's a potential tax law coming, a change where it's going to be targeted towards folks that own second homes. It would make sense it was more for Airbnb though than long-term. Let me ask you this. So if you would you keep your long-term rental if they did that with the taxes on your property? First, that's the first question. The second question, are you seeing forced selling? People that are like, you know what, I own an Airbnb and the law changed, or if this law changes, Stephanie, I am going to sell my house because I can't afford that Airbnb if numbers don't work. Are you seeing that yet?
I think that it depends on when they bought it. I think that if they bought it before 2022 and it's being used as a short-term or long-term, I don't think they're going to be priced out where they have to sell because they were able to get that interest rate where it makes sense. Like with my rental, for example, I have 2.75% interest. So I am able to, it's okay. I can charge a lower rent if I wanted to or needed to, or that the market changes and still make a profit. And even if taxes go up, I can still make a profit. People that have recently bought it, that might be a different story. We have really low taxes here. Whitefish is a little different. It's a higher tax bracket for sure. But my neighborhood that I built in, it's not the nicest neighborhood by any means, but because of where it sits with school districts and different things, my neighborhood that I live in West Valley is the highest tax area in Kalispell. So my taxes per year are $6,000 on my house, which is nothing compared to other, Texas, for example, like people that are used to paying, and in California, they're used to paying $30,000 a year in housing taxes. That's not a lot. But the math that I've done, if I'm correct, it's not going to go up that much, like to make a difference that you're like, oh my gosh, I can't afford it. But again, it's all when they bought it and what interest rate they have it, because that interest rate could affect their profitability on that property. We're only an hour south of the Canadian border. So before COVID, our economy really depended on and thrived on Canadian influence of people coming down here from Alberta and everything, and boosting our economy. So we're seeing most of them are selling their houses now because of everything that's happening politically and tariffs and different things. They're worried about selling in the future, that taxes might change and different things. So just last week alone, I was at one of the title companies that I primarily use, and they told me that they closed on 11 Canadian properties just at that title company in 1 week. I think that people like that also that have investment properties down here they're worried about being affected. So we're seeing some fear already happening, and that the tax laws don't go into effect until 2026.
And they've been voted on already?
They're voted in.
Okay, they are. I guess you're confirming is that, yeah, if you bought in 2023 and paid 40% more than it was in 2021, and you got an interest rate of 6% instead of a 2% like you have, which is amazing that you have that interest rate. Like, yeah, you can get creamed if you're not running the short-term rental right. What types of homes are not moving? What types of homes are sitting on the market, and every month people are like, hey, I wonder when that's going to sell, right? It just kind of sits there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say generally here locally in Flathead County that anything that is 750,000 or over, you're looking at longer days on market. I was talking about how usually the average price point is sitting like around 90 days because of summer, but average days for 750 and over is 120 still or more. Over $1 million. I try to get really involved locally here with other agents, and we're all talking with each other, and we're getting one showing every 60 days on $1 million plus house. That is like the hardest market to be able to talk to your clients about. And that's where we're seeing a lot of price reductions, honestly, is over $1 million. People just like, they always say cash is king, but cash ain't moving anymore. There's not a lot of people with cash. If it is actually a nice house, doesn't need a whole lot of work, like doesn't need more than $50,000 in immediate work to be able to live in it, and it's under 500,000, I would say we're still seeing multiple offers, and you have to be on it really fast. And it's wild, but I've had 3 houses in the last 2 months that are under 600,000 that they were on the market for 90 days, and literally between day 90 and 95, we got 3 offers in a day. I've had 3 houses in the last 60 days do that. And it, like I said, it didn't make sense back in 2021 when we were having to make spreadsheets to go over offer, and it doesn't make sense now. Tell me how a house is on the market for almost 100 days and gets multiple offers in a day.
So your market, very similar to mine in that if something's priced under the median or around the median, and it's like move-in type ready or close to it, it's going to pass FHA, it's going to pass VA loans. It doesn't require a roof or foundation work, nothing scary, just needs like a bathroom or a kitchen or something. And you can comfortably at least move in and live there, even if it needs renovated. That's going, and if it's priced, it has to be priced normally. It can't be egregiously priced.
Yeah, 100%.
It's gonna move quick with multiple offers. I tell all the investor clients I have, if you want to flip a home, I hate to tell you this, and I know this is where everything's very difficult, you got to flip under the median.
Yep.
If you're flipping a home well over the median, you better know what you're doing, because you can get crushed. Yeah, that kind of confirms my suspicion, is that it's not just Ohio. There are homes, markets all over the country. Homes priced under the median are still moving.
Yes.
So to that end, with buying a home, if I'm a buyer and I'm coming into your market and I'm like, you know what, Stephanie, I'm realistic on the prices. What advice are you giving buyers to be successful there now?
There's nothing wrong with the house if it's been on the market for over 100 days, because that is very hard for buyers that are local or coming from out of state. They're like, whoa, it's been on the market for 85 days. Like something's wrong with it. They're desperate now. Let's offer like way lower. Like they're not. That's just normal. And then I'm telling buyers, like, don't be afraid to get creative. I had a couple that came to me and they're like, hey, we can only afford this. And it's like, it's super hard. Their price point was super hard, but I'm like, let's get creative. Like if we can get the seller to pitch in some money and buy down the interest rate and do a 2-1 buy down, or cover your closing costs, or both, like maybe you could afford this still comfortably. People are afraid of things that they don't understand. So I'm just trying to stay educated myself and educate, because people are afraid of what they don't understand. So if you're not helping them understand, they're going to be too afraid to even buy. I'm also encouraging them to talk to a lender that is not afraid of the same things, to be creative. Like I think that realtors and lenders unfortunately got stuck in a rut, and it was easy for like from 2020 to 2023, it was really easy to sell a house. And now it's hard. There's not a transaction that's not messy. Honestly, I don't have one like that. There's not repairs that need to be made, or crap, we need to do this to get this buyer to be able to afford this. Or I'm talking with the other realtor even, like, hey, can you give up a little bit if I give up a little bit, and let's make this happen for both of our people.
I don't think a lot of people know, and I'm so glad you said this, we take haircuts all the time to get deals done. I'm saying, look, your client wants the property, my client wants to sell it. We could put it back on the market, but why? Like, let's just take a 0.5% each discount and just move on.
Yeah, 100%. Yep. I have had multiple offers that I've had to submit in a multiple offer situation for a buyer, and they don't want to tell me what the compensation is being offered, just that their seller is willing to pay a buyer's agency compensation, but I'm to write it in with my offer. And I started cutting my compensation because when I'm in those situations, because I'm worried, I don't want my compensation to affect my clients getting the house that they need or they love. And I saw it the first time and I lost out. And I write there's not a lot of things that I'm like this about, but my broker taught me how to write a very competitive offer. And so if I'm losing out, it's most likely because of money. Like I couldn't have beat that somebody offered cash or offered X amount of dollars. But I know this one that I lost out on, and it had to be because of compensation. It makes me sick that we've come to that. But that's like the new trend that I've been seeing is my sellers offering compensation, but you write it in on your offer. So I'm having to cut it because I don't want my client to lose out.
Look, Stephanie obviously knows what's going on in Montana. I will tell you, the fact that you understand the stats is a huge plus for your clients and prospective clients. Like, I talk to a lot of realtors and brokers. Not all of them understand what their local market is doing with days on market, median price, how that's changed over time. So the fact that you understand that and have reasons for it, it gives me encouragement that if I had a referral to send your way, I would definitely be comfortable because you know real estate. And so you have a great attitude, and you're obviously passionate about the business. So if somebody is looking to buy or sell a home in Northwest Montana, how should they get a hold of you?
You can call or text me, and I am probably most active on my Instagram. If you're just looking to know stuff about Montana in general, I try to post something about a local business every Wednesday, a locally owned business and operated business. And then I post something about Montana every Monday. Reach out, call, text, Instagram, anytime.
Something else to mention about Stephanie, folks, is that I got connected with her through a magazine called Real Producers. They only highlight the best of the best. And so that's Stephanie. So if you're looking for the best of the best in Montana, you're looking at her right now. We'll have to have you back on the Housing Nerd at some point to see how the market evolves as maybe rates come down or they don't come down or whatever happens.
Yes, absolutely. I would love it.
Great, Stephanie. Listen, have a great day.
You too.